back to McElroy's Motors, the home of the weird, the boring, the projects, and the adventures. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today's video is part 3 of my 1990 Eagle Premier's restoration. And by which I mean, I'm going to get some rust proofing, as well as some spray paint, to eventually make this car shine like it was supposed to. So it is now time to cue the music. Crazy to think that I got this spray paint as well as this Rust-Oleum for only 10 bucks. What a bargain. I'm going to use the Rust-Oleum for the roof because I exposed the metal, which is something I don't want to do, and then I'm going to repaint this car silver because that's the color my first car used to be. And if you guys have been following this story so far, you'll know that I had one of these as my first car, so I had to make it match as best I could. Let's just hope I don't make a mess of things. Oh yeah, fired right up. I had this one guy, as I was leaving Walmart earlier today, comment on my car and he says, "That thing's pretty sweet, dude." I'm not sure if you guys know this already, but I absolutely adore this car. It's not just the memories, it's not the fact how old it is, it's just the fact that it is pretty much everything I look for in a car. Something comfortable, yet fun to drive. Something rare and interesting, yet something that looks completely conventional. I love everything that this car has got to give, and it gives quite a bit. Now, before I get started on this paint job, I won't procrastinate any further, but I do want to give a massive thank you to my two good friends, John Dunlap and Brian Gillard, for hosting at K1 Car Speed Raceway, whatever it was called, a massive car meet. We're talking at least 200 different cars from all types, from the weird to the oddball to the fun to the classics, you name it. We had a whole slew of cars there, and it was simply incredible. Easily one of the biggest car meets I had been to in some time. And I just want to give a massive thank you to everybody who attended, bringing in their four-wheeled or perhaps even three-wheeled bundles of joy to this car meet, and coming from all over. We had people come from West Virginia, we had people come from Pennsylvania, some came from Indiana. It just really means a lot that we could just have a cars and coffee and just talk cars for a few hours, regardless of what type of vehicle it is. I got to sit in a 1960 Morris Mini Minor, which was phenomenal. I got to be a passenger in a 1990 Volvo 240. It was just outrageously cool. And again, Brian, John, massive thank you for hosting this huge event. It just makes your day a lot better. My friend Alicia, who went with me on my 2,800 mile road trip back in November, also went with me, and she took a lot of photos. But coming up now is a photo montage of all the photos I took at the car meet. Enjoy. as you guys saw the whole plethora of different vehicles, bikes, as well as four-legged bundles of joy that made the show even more fun than having hundreds, if not thousands, of cars be there this morning. And it was just a great turnout. And like I said, I would highly recommend that car meet over anything. And we just found out about it earlier this week. So a bit of a week's notice, but better than a week's notice than no notice at all. So it's now time to do some painting for this car. And I'm not trying to make it look showroom condition. I'm just trying to make it look a lot better than I did when I first found it back in early spring to early summer. So I don't want to make it look like 50 Shades of Blue or the Smurfs edition of 50 Shades of Grey, but just make it look better than it did when I first bought it some time ago. So let's get started with the painting. For the spray paint, I went with this Duplicolor Perfect Match Pro Auto Paint System. Duplicate's original factory color. I don't know if this will be exactly how my first car was, but this is as close of a silver as I can manage. The official color name to my first car was Sterling Silver Metallic, and I know that was a Chrysler-based color. I think that's the same color my grandfather's 2016 Jeep Compass is. So at least it'll blend in somewhat, but I just know that it's not going to last very long because this is only an 8-ounce can or 226 grams. So like I said, I'm only going to try tackling the hood today. The rest will come after I finish moving. Shoot, I don't even know if this is just touch-up paint, but at the same time, it's in the can. I'm going to use it, and hopefully it dries quickly because I have to work tomorrow night. Oh yeah, that's looking better already. Now, the last time I spray painted a car part was, I think, last summer before I took that huge 2,800 mile road trip last fall. I tried spray painting the silver hubcaps I got from my Saturn SL1, and it didn't turn out all that great. It kind of looked like a freshly molded piece of aluminum, and I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible with this. And like I said, I don't want this car to look factory fresh. I just wanted it to look a lot better. So if I have to get another can to add another coat, then by golly, I'll do it. Yeah, I might need another can, especially to cover where the paint has severely oxidized in the past. Definitely looks a lot better than it did, that's for sure. And as for the pinstripes that this car has, I'm not worried about covering those up because I'm going to use as a marking point to put on black pinstripes that my car had back in 2016. Now, as for the scratches that were caused by sanding, I'm not too worried about those because I want to give the car a bit of a stainless steel look because this car does share the DeLorean engine. And there's bird poop right there. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need another can for the hood for sure. Especially to cover up the heavily oxidized paint in some areas. Now, as for the part of the hood where it kind of curves down towards the grill, I'm going to probably just get a paintbrush and just coat that and just touch it in a little bit here and there. Shoot, I'm almost out of paint already. Now, this car does have a few small minor dents on it, and I'm not worried about those at all. It adds character to what is a very old, very rare car. And like I said, I don't want this car to look perfect. I just want it to look good enough to the point I don't have to worry about seeing this ugly shade of blue anymore. Because if you know me, I am colorblind. So any shade of blue looks like a very dull, non-metallic silver. It looks frankly hideous. It's almost as if it's got the bare metal with some primer on it. Tell you what, with this silver paint being on the car, I'm getting the memories back much harder than I did when I first bought this car. I think I'm out of paint. Nope, not quite. I think it might be just aerosol at this point. Yep, nothing's coming out. That is empty. But it definitely looks a lot better. Not perfect, but definitely a lot better. I'll let you guys see what it looks like. It is still not a 5-star effort. But honestly, compared to how it was, it definitely looks better. So while that dries, I'm going to start on the Rustproofing. And luckily with the can of Rust-Oleum I got, it has a nozzle which I can do 5 separate ways. So I can really get into the tiny spots, which will definitely come in handy. But I'll go out to the auto parts store later on today and buy some more paint. Now I'm going to have to apologize for this very wonky, very awkward, very terrible camera angle, but it'll have to do. The tripod that I bought last year already broke, and it wasn't me being clumsy or perhaps careless. It was just the fact it was very cheaply made. I guess there's that saying, you get what you pay for. Anyway, I'm going to get the Rust-Oleum out of the back seat and start working on this roof. So the car will be silver, blue, gray, and black. Yeah, makes perfect sense, but like I said, this is the ugly phase, so you have to deal with it for just a little longer. Alright, where's that Rust-Oleum at? Where's my precious Rust-Oleum? Where the heck is it at? Where is it at? It can't have gone far. Aha! It was in the passenger seat. Because that makes perfect sense. And I'm also going to touch up the door sills as well. Alright, let's see what sort of trouble I can cause. I'm going to start with level 2, see where it gets me. I think that was like the standard output.
It was at this moment Nicholas knew he fucked up.
Oh, that went well. Just sprayed something in the car. Thank God it didn't get on the seats or anything like that. The wind took it away. I tell you what though, if you really wanted to conserve your classic car, this is some really good stuff. Highly recommend it to any car enthusiast. Except if they drive Saturns, because it won't work on the plastic body panels. when I was helping Joseph put my Saturn back together in South Carolina, we used this stuff to prevent the rust from getting worse. And it's still holding even today. So I guess that's a win-win in that regard. I'm going to have to do the passenger side as well. I'm going to turn it down to level 3, which is the low output, which makes sense, but I'm going to have to use it for the door here. Oh, let's get on the windows! Shoot! Ah! Got more on the glass. Ah! Stuff drips like crazy. Almost as if a permanent marker is having a bloody nose. But that should be fine. Finish the roof here. I really should be wearing a mask, but I'm not going to be the kind of guy who gets high off spray paint. I mean, sure, I might get a little lightheaded, but that's fine. Crank. Oh, it's getting everywhere. I'm going to try number 4, see if that gets me more. Oh, this is just dripping everywhere. Goodness gracious. Ah! Like I said, it's like a Sharpie with a bloody nose. I'm not even worried about it getting on the paint itself because this car is going to be repainted anyway, as evidenced with the hood. But it's definitely looking a lot better. And like I said, not perfect, but definitely a lot better. But man, this stuff is sticky. Got the sticky stuff on my fingers again. Anthony, if you're watching, shut your mouth. I don't need JB Weld on my fingers again. But while that's drying, I'm going to tackle this little part of the fender here. Alright, that's that covered. We'll move on to the passenger side of the roof. And then hopefully the paint on the hood will be dry. Can't make any promises about that. Alright, I shall save the rest of this for later, and hopefully it doesn't harden in time. But, man, this silver paint is really making this car shine. And like I said, I'm not expecting perfection, but it's coming together very nicely. So while that Rust-Oleum dries, I'm going to make a trip to the auto parts store and come back with more spray paint. And then hopefully I can finish the hood today, but I managed to get some paint on the windshield. Hopefully some window cleaner can buff that out. Bear in mind, I am not an expert body man at this. I was going to have my friend Joe do it, and he lives a few houses down. Not the Joseph down South Carolina, another Joe. And he's an expert at body work. But I would like to learn something just as much as you guys would. So that's the benefit in this. Now that being said though, I am absolutely terrified about doing the A-pillar right here because I'm worried it's just going to run right down into the cladding. But I do have a backup plan for that, and I'm going to save that for the absolute last to do the sides of the car. Because when I do the sides of the car, I'm going to use masking tape to mask off all the cladding so that doesn't get messed up. Because that to me is the most nostalgic part of the entire car, besides the fact I had one of these as my very first car. But would you find it hard to believe that the paint on the hood is already dry? And that's a wasp flying around. Hopefully I don't get stung. But yeah, the paint on the hood is already dry. Crazy. Yeah, look. The only black stuff you see on my hands is the Rust-Oleum. Well, I just left AutoZone, having applied a second can of spray paint onto the car just to finish the hood up a bit. And this one jackass in a 1970s Ford, model name unknown. He said it was called the XL, but I felt like that was a trim level. Either way, he was being a jackass, not looking where he was going, and backed into my Eagle. Thankfully, the damage was relatively minor. All he did was just damage this little piece of black plastic that surrounds the taillight housing. But it doesn't look that bad. I have it held together with electrical tape for the time being, and I do plan to replace the taillights themselves as they are a bit cloudy. But it's not that serious. It won't cause me to get a ticket or a traffic infraction. But still, if you got an old big car from like that, especially from before the oil crisis, just be careful when you're driving it because it is such a big, heavy thing. Now, if you guys recall, I had some issues with paint loss, as expected from a car that's nearly 40 years old. So I hit it up with a coat of black metallic spray paint, and it seems to be looking a lot better. I also did the passenger side as well, but before I did both sides, I hit them both up with a coat of Rust-Oleum just to prevent the car from rusting under here. And I gotta say, it definitely has a nice glossy finish to it now. As for the hood, well, I am very pleased to see it's holding up very well. It's not looking perfect just yet, but it'll get there in time. But given the fact that I have not added any clear coat to the paint yet, and the fact that I'm still going to add a couple more coats just to finish the job, as well as start on the roof, hopefully soon enough, it's looking pretty darn good. I also added some Rust-Oleum onto the roof here because that's where I sanded down to the bare metal, rather unexpectedly, but it's also holding up very well. And the same could be said for the rear left fender. I'm not gonna lie, I'm liking the way this car looks in black, but at the same time, I want this car in silver. I don't expect to be a professional job. I just wanted this car to scream first car like nobody's business. So I'd be okay with a couple flaws here and there. Well, viewers, it is now 25 minutes past 11 o'clock at night, and as you can tell behind me, I'm officially at work for my shift to start in about 35 minutes. But before I do go, I'd like to say a few words here today. Because for one thing, I am so happy by how well those door sills are looking now that the paint and rustproofing have fully dried. Now, when you guys join me for the 4th installment of this project, we're going to tackle the rest of the hood, we're going to tackle the rest of the roof, as well as the trunk, which also requires removal of the luggage rack, which is something I'm definitely not looking forward to, but hey, needs must. And I have my friend Kyle coming by to help me with that. He's the one who I got to sit in the 1990 Volvo 240 at the car meet that I mentioned earlier. I also want to say that we are definitely starting to make plans for our annual Washington, D.C. adventure, and we are going to be planning to take this super rare, super old car all the way down there, and I am super looking forward to that adventure. We are officially leaving Friday, November 6th, and coming back Monday, November 9th. And in next week's video, I will be sure to make a video to document all the plans that we have planned for that trip as well. And honestly, I am just so excited by this vehicle's restoration, and I am just so genuinely thankful that this 36-year-old car has been as reliable as it has been, despite being a Renault-based car. It really has been truly fantastic. The only things I had to do to it were replace the spark plugs and the tires. And I know I have to get to the CV boots at some point, but that'll come in time. And I do plan on going back to Mr. Tire in Hartville, Ohio to get that done. And they're already looking for CV boots for me as we speak. But on the bright side, I just wanted to say we are closing on 1,000 subscribers, and if you want to help me support this project, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content if you haven't done so already, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys in an upcoming video. Take care, everybody.